Europe just announced new regulations that are changing the rules of the game. They can either be the biggest opportunity of your lifetime, or they will destroy your business. So you should be aware of it, and let's talk about them now. Hi, I'm Oliver, and welcome back to the channel Ask Me Startup, where we talk about startups, small businesses, and the world that surrounds them. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and pushing the notification bell because it really helps this channel to grow. If you're into business, if you plan to start a business, if you have a small startup, please feel free to download my free startup checklist, link in the description below. So today, a very important topic for everybody wanting to work within the European Union, because the regulations will be put in place or have been put in place and they change the rules. First, I'm pretty sure you have heard of the GDPR, the famous data protection regulations in Europe, which most of the times are annoying and many times do not work the way they were intended to be, even though the intentions from my perspective have been very legit. Now, that was just the beginning. Then, if you remember, I already posted a video on the Digital Markets Act and the Digital Service Act. And if you're not quite sure what's the content of these, please click the video up here because it really is important you understand what is going on here. Now, for many, these regulations are maybe just for big companies. That is true because they have a very special focus on big companies like Twitter or Facebook or Meta. But that's not only the thing we're talking about here. Also, small startups will become affected by these regulations. But of course, there are new regulations, additional regulations beyond those that I've already mentioned. The first new set of regulations to expect will be the AI Act, the Artificial Intelligence Act. This is most likely the most far-reached set of regulations in the whole industry in the whole world. Now, negotiations on the final text are expected to finalize somewhat around the end of 2023, but if you're working in this area, you should be aware that this is coming and you should be aware of the key points. If you think of AI, you should think of things like specific ad targeting or facial recognition or something like this. These things might or might not be acceptable anymore. For instance, police is not allowed to use facial recognition on public cameras to trace people, unlike in China, for instance. Then AI should be or will be regulated, and they still are working on the definitions in terms of what is an AI, what isn't, etc. But they want just trustworthy and safe AI to be allowed legally in the European Union. Now, whatever that means, it is for sure going to be complicated to companies, because they have to kind of document what they're doing and how it is relevant or non-relevant or according to the law. Is it good for the future? Well, I would assume it is challenging because most of us have no idea that they have interacted with an AI maybe. And that is, I think, the most crucial aspect of the whole set of regulations. You have to actually visibly mark that you have been interacting with an AI and not a human being. Or texts have been produced by an AI and not a human being, etc. So I think this is actually quite good because in the end, AI will become so good that it might not differentiate between you, a human, and this AI system. And for us humans, this is a big help. If I'm already thinking about deep fake videos, etc., which have or will be created by AI, my God. And please keep in mind that even if you consider, okay, it's just the EU, I'm going to go to the UK, because they left the European Union. It's not going to work like this, because even the UK is working on a Data Protection Act and an AI Act. They have separate names for their bills, but it doesn't matter. So there will be similar regulations, and this will kind of foster innovation and it will block others. The next act will be the Data Act. Now, the Data Act is more focused on industrial data exchanges, and it will kind of set minimal requirements for industry companies or data providers to exchange and access their data, meaning you should have clean interfaces and people should be quite open about what and where they're going to collect the data and transfer them to, etc. So this way, Industry 4.0 will kind of be more easily interactable in the future. Now, how far this is, I don't know. It is just on the doing and it will come up. Is it relevant for most of you? I'm not so sure. It depends where your startup idea is. If you're more on the B2C, business to customer, then not. But if it's a B2B, this is something you should pay attention to because it actually defines your set of rules that you need to follow. And if you're already, or if you are in the beginning of your startup and kind of developing things, you should take these requirements already into consideration. Otherwise, you've spent the money twice for reprogramming. The next thing that is up on the horizon is the platform work directive. Now, think of companies like Deliveroo or Uber or Lyft or I don't know, whatever. Anything that considers, just being a platform for solopreneurs to be able to get work off. This is actually going to be heavily regulated so that there is no misuse of the social systems in Europe. And they are quoting that they have between 1.7 and 4 million people to be classified as workers and not independent entrepreneurs. Which I have to say, in terms from the perspective of startups or businesses, of course, is terrible. But from the perspective of society is good because these people deserve that they have a decent living at the end of their life and not being misused by some tech companies that they cannot even fight against. The next thing that's going to happen is the European Innovation Agenda. Now, this is important because it actually forces or sets the rules for new startups, and they kind of, want to foster and innovate a lot. And they have defined rules like they want to have 1 million people working deep tech. They are actually planning to set up specific ecosystems that are going to help financially and economically new startups to thrive. Now, this is a big and kind of complex set of rules, but it actually means that Europe finally is focusing on startups and fostering innovation in the future. This is going to be huge if you have the right startup idea to fit this set of thinking that they have. So as a summary, 2023 is going to be very, very, very interesting for most of us because things are shifting and become more clear now. Well, it kind of reduces, some weird access or some weird ideas that are not eligible within the European market, but it also sets clear rules so that we have a level playing field. And specifically the Digital Markets Act, which I have been talking about, helps you as a small startup to be able to fight against big tech companies like Twitter or Meta or Facebook, because they are using your data maybe against you. Now they can't anymore. And so I think that we will see a lot of diversification in the future. Will all these rules be perfect? Oh, hell no. I mean, you're aware that most of the legislative processes in Europe are complicated and are heavily lobbyist directed, but at the end, over time, they will evolve in such a way that the European market, I think, will be something others will look at in order to regulate their own markets. Because if you don't have regulations, you either crack them down heavily like China has done, or you're going to suffer a lot like the US. Anyway, that's it for this video. I thank you for watching. If you made it so far in the video, please subscribe and drop a comment. And I'm gonna see you next time.